Nationals have signed off on the Prime Minister's plan for a net zero emissions target by 2050. The details of the deal, though, remain under wraps, with federal cabinet set to sign off on safeguards for regional Australians. Joining me live now is the leader of the Nationals Party, Barnaby Joyce. Thanks so much for your time. It's been a while. The Nationals have given a green light to this. So can you explain exactly what it is? Is it giving the Prime Minister permission to commit to a binding net zero target by 2050, and he'll take that to Glasgow?
Well, Laura, the National set the process to determine how we negotiated our way to a better deal for regional Australia. And that process, right from the start, said that the view would be the view of the party room, not the view of the executive or any individual within that. The Nationals party room has come to that view, and we support the process of the Prime Minister going to Glasgow to pursue the goal of net zero by 2050.
So not a binding target then, just a goal?
Well, but ultimately, 2050 requires people who will be here long after we're gone. I mean, I'll be 84 by 2050. So I think that it's incredibly important that we set the goal, because that is the decision of the party room. And as that process goes forward, people will determine the actions, and the Prime Minister's clearly said it's going to be with technology, and with that technology, as it develops, as it gets proved up, it becomes more efficient. And remember, Laura, that right now we had and set down a process to get to the targets that we have today, and we've not only arrived there, we've beaten them. So it's not a case that there is implausibility or some form of mischief in our words, because we stand behind what we have said we'll do in previous targets at Paris. We've achieved them and we've surpassed them.
So what has the Nationals party room actually agreed to? Because the Prime Minister wants to take a binding target to Glasgow, and you're talking about a goal.
We are making the Nationals party room, in the first iteration, when we were presented with the plan, to a person, no one said that they agreed to it without changes. Therefore, we went into a process of negotiation. In that process of negotiation, we attained further changes, because we had two choices. We were either going to be the negotiator inside the room or the demonstrator on the lawn, and we decided that the negotiator in the room was a vastly better outcome for the people we represent. We understand that there are concerns out there, but we say to people, look at the position that we had. We could either be the negotiator or the demonstrator. We chose to be the negotiator. We have got you a better deal. We've got you further protections. We are making sure that we stand behind farmers and miners and the towns that wealth supports, so that it can be maintained into the future. I think of the two alternatives, that is obviously the better one.
Okay, so does the Prime Minister go to Glasgow with your blessing for a binding target, or are you just saying the National position is that you've extracted a price and carve-outs for that? I know there's a vague reference. Sorry, you go.
Sorry, I shouldn't interrupt. Sorry, you finish.
No. I think my question's clear. Is it your blessing? Does the National Party give the Prime Minister your blessing?
Yeah, the blessing
to have a binding target, because a binding target though, not a goal.
The Prime Minister. Well, we're sort of being cute with the words. I really don't know what the difference is between the two words, to be honest.
Well, because the Glasgow summit is all about countries committing to a binding target. I mean, this is not going to be legislated.
It's not going to be legislated, and that's the whole point. So what I can say is where we are right now is ahead. Whether you call it a goal, a target, whatever word you want to use, we're ahead of that. But what I can say, we've managed to get ahead of that by not putting people out of a job, by not bringing in a carbon tax, by not shutting down coal mines. Now, the Labor Party is going to go forward and they're going to legislate it. And that's, I suppose that rhetorical flourish by people such as Shadow Minister Chris Bowen, member for McMahon, or Anthony Albanese, they've made the statement. It's now incumbent upon the Labor Party to come forward, and if they're going to legislate it, to say, what exactly are you legislating? What exactly are the consequences of that?
But you now
Are you
have
going
the
to go to
same
the people?
target as the Labor Party, don't you? So what's the problem?
The difference is the Labor Party are going to legislate it. The Labor Party are actually going to make a process and put in place a process, unless they can tell us otherwise, that's going to put at risk the mining jobs which the Nationals went into bat to support. That'll put at risk the farmers and wander down, I don't know, nefarious process of methane emissions from cattle and such things like that, which the National Party went in to protect. The Labor Party is going to basically try and make sure that they keep the people of the seat of Grainla happy and somehow be relevant to the people of the Hunter Valley. And that's not going to work. We will be able to go to those areas and clearly say that we went into bat for your incomes, for your industry, for your towns of Muswellbrook or Gladstone or Emerald or Billawheeler. That is the process. We are very aware of it. They're our people, and we made sure that we did the very best on their behalf, because that is our job. Our alternative was to join an incredibly entertaining chorus outside the room, which had net zero effect on what was happening in regards the negotiated settlement that the Nationals and the Prime Minister came to.
What you've said, and I know this has been a tortured process, and fair enough, because the livelihoods in many of these small towns that rely on these industries, that live off these industries, do rely on it. But it seems you've come to this point for base political reasons rather than any kind of personal conviction. You say the only difference between you and the Labor Party now is that they're going to legislate it. Well, you've just given the green light to this 2050 target. The Labor Party is going to put in steps to reach that. Isn't you giving this green light? You don't actually have any control over the next 30 years and how you get there.
Well, no one does. No one has control over the next
government. Well, why agree
government.
to it then?
Because that is a process that was decided by the Nationals Party room. It is a process, obviously, that globally that is the world is going down. It is a process that our major allies, such as the United States and England, are part of. It is a process that has evolved in recent years, and now the party room, the coalition, has, as you said, given the blessing to the Prime Minister of Australia to go to Glasgow and to pursue the plan that will come to cabinet, and we'll see that obviously very imminently.
So what price have you asked the regions to pay, and what are those carve-outs that you've extracted?
We've asked the regions to pay no price, and that is the crucial issue here. We've made sure that in our discussions the regions will be in the same place or better. We've made sure that there is no inflection or caveat that will affect coal mining to supply the global demand, which is currently there at record prices and record amounts, and by so doing underpin the wealth of this nation. Fossil fuels underpin the wealth of this nation to support the social security, your NDIS, your pharmaceutical benefit scheme, your pensions, your health, all those things that are so vitally important to keep our terms of trade positive. We've made sure that process stays not impugned by any caveat, which the Labor Party, because they're going to legislate, has now got to prove to you and to your listeners what is actually in this legislation.
But so do
and
you,
what that
don't
means.
You? I mean, just because it's not in legislation, you still need to adhere. You've got the same goals. So by you saying it's not legislated, you're saying, well, maybe you're hoping that you can get out of it in some way because it's not binding on Parliament.
No. Once we make a deal, we make a deal, and we stick to that deal.
But with respect, you might not be Deputy Prime Minister in 10 years.
Well, that's hardly surprising. I mean, if it is, it'll be kind of a record. But what I can say is we've said technology. Now that technology has the capacity as it advances to go greater efficiencies. And people say, well, what you can't stand by that. Yes, we can. Because we've achieved all our goals, and that's incredibly important to get through to the Australian people. We've achieved all the goals that are set out. We've said technology. The Labor Party has said legislation. So there is your difference in the path. We say technology. The Labor says legislation. And legislation can include such things as carbon taxes, include such things as a direct impost immediately on the farming sector, on the mining sector. And if that is not the case, then the Labor Party must tell us what is in their legislation. They've said the word legislation, not us. We've said technologies, they've said legislation.
Okay.
So the Australian people, there is a vast difference between the two processes going forward.
You've come a long way. I mean, a couple of years ago, you were warning of, $100 lamb roast. Last election, some within your party were warning about electric cars cancelling the weekend. It's been quite a journey for you. Is this the kind of the position that you thought you'd end up in?
Well, I don't know. We've come a long way. It does sound like a Fat Boy Slim song, but anyway. I think that things evolve, and in politics, as I said, look, it's quite simple. The Prime Minister of Australia was going to Glasgow. He didn't need the National Party approval. He'd made the statement he was going. Therefore, there was no vote or process where the Nationals could stop him going, and that's absolutely and utterly his right, and the remit and the desires of reflection of his party. We've said, well, in looking at that, if that's the case, we have two choices. We can negotiate or we can demonstrate. There are no other choices. You can have sort of a Pyrrhic statement and scream and yell out in the lawns, or you can actually negotiate for better protections of the people of regional Australia, for Central Queensland, the Hunter Valley, the Northern Territory, for the farmers all the way down to Tasmania.
Okay.
And the choice was quite obvious. It was to make sure that we negotiated a better settlement, and we did.